Hi everybody. I am just waiting for joining us in a moment for this very special live. Hi Thomas.
Hello, how
Good
are you?
evening. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Exciting. I'm so happy we're having this event tonight. Really honored to have you on board, and we'll be
Thank you.
sharing this IGTV as well for anyone that couldn't join us live tonight. So
Cool.
Thomas, I just wanted to start by first thanking you for coming live tonight, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey to Omnus, and telling our audience a little bit about what Omnus is about.
Yeah, sure. So Omnus is a health optimization platform, and my background is actually sports science. That was where I got started with everything. And the idea was to, when I first started, I always had the idea of trying to optimize the performance of the people I was coaching. But by looking at them a bit like I could look at the Formula One, having a dashboard and looking at things that I could optimize. And this is where the idea of Omnos started, but it's been a long journey. There was many other attempts before Omnos and many other things. But yes, it was very exciting in the sense that from taking someone's genetic, for example, understanding about their lifestyle and combining this together to give them an understanding of what their strengths, weaknesses are. But then quickly after, I realized actually what I'm doing for athletes could really help people like you and me or everybody on helping to optimize their health, which I think was a better things to do rather than coaching athletes on optimizing their performance. And this is where we started really. I started really with a platform called GenSmart, which was looking about genetic. So tests like 23andMe, a lot of people have done those tests, giving a bit more of an insight on what should be doing about those results. So, things to do, things to avoid, and all those different things. And from there, really, has been a very long journey in trying to add more to the mix, trying to be more accurate with the whole science, because there's no regulation, so you have to finding the right team in developing the platform, and also not only having the genetic aspect of things, but starting combining with the biomarkers that will tell you how you're doing right now, because genetic is great, but it has its limits in the sense that genetic will tell you about who you are, your sort of the make of you, but then what do you need to optimize, and what are the key biomarkers you should be focusing on really.
And in that sense, I find that particularly interesting. How do you think that Omnus can play a role in reconnecting us with our true nature?
Yeah, so I think, it's funny how things works, but now with technology, we start to realize that actually most of the disease or the problem we have nowadays is because of disconnection with our environment. And we start to prove this through data, right? So whether it's, vitamin D deficiency because you don't have enough light exposure, or vitamin B12 deficiency because you don't eat any organ meat. I'm saying that because you're talking about organ meats.
Yes.
But all those things are real. So we've lost a lot of our ancestral way of living. And we can see the impact that it has on us, specifically on our genetic material, for example. Because obviously, we are part of a big ecosystem. And if you start disconnecting more and more of this ecosystem, obviously you will come across issues. And if we talk about food specifically, I want to talk about biochemistry of that food, right? So, the biochemistry is basically the understanding of all the different elements of an organism, right? But if you start taking food away of their environment, pack them in plastic, store them for months sometimes, put them on the shelf, and then they end up in your body, they're not as powerful in terms of nutrients, but they could be. And all of this, you add all the layer of toxicity that's being added, pesticides, all those things, plastic. And this is actually what damage in the long term our genetic material. So it's very important to understand this whole ecosystem as one. So, a lot of people say, well, meat is a big problem. It's not really the meat that is the problem, it's the system that makes the meat. In a sense, because yes, the meat we eat nowadays is definitely not, if you go to your local shop, it probably has antibiotic, which cause a lot of problems. So, first in your guts, killing your own bacteria, but also making you resilient potentially to antibiotics. And so there's a whole array of issue that can, come from not having this ecosystem of being really connected to our food.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. And what do you think in terms of looking at our ancestors and how they used to live and what they used to do? In your mind, what's the biggest difference between what we used to do and what we are doing now?
Well, again, it's this disconnection. So, things like, if you want precise little things. So, I've got this memory of an old aunt of mine who was living in Africa as a nun. And she was, I remember as a kid, she was telling me all those stories. And she was basically telling me, I remember stories of like, when the hunter were coming with a kill, they already had taken the heart, they already had, and they were sharing even the content of if it was an herbivore, like the content of the food in the stomach, which was fermented food with the families, and that was medicine. It was seen as medicine. And this is the sort of things we lost actually. It's the sense of like almost having a respect for everything that we do, the food, but also taking in consideration all the aspects of that comes across, each part has, different type of vitamins. You don't have to eat the fermented food from the stomach of just a kill, for example. But we're coming back, funny enough, to all those things, right? So kombucha and all those, try to mimic again by trends and more appropriate to our lifestyle. But still, it's the things we have lost. So it's quite funny to see that, we're coming back to all those things on the way we were doing it before.
And from a point of view, because I'm really interested on your input on genes, that's really, really your area of expertise. And as you know, I really love talking about offals and the odd bit and reintegrating in our diet those parts of the animal that we don't often think about when we're eating a traditional diet. And in terms of the genes, how does it help optimizing our gene? What is that you can share with us?
You mean specific genes or?
Yes. What kind of health spectrum of genes should we be aware of in relation to our diet? And
okay, so it's very important to actually reestablish this connection between your genes and your lifestyle and your environment. This is where I would start. But then also what I would say is your genes are not your fate, in the sense that it's not because you have certain genetic makeup that predisposes you to certain things that you will necessarily develop the disease or the risk associated to it. But it's true that it's already predisposing you to certain things. So then it's important to understand what you are made of to really adapt your lifestyle, your diet, and your environment. And if we look at specific genes in relation to diet, There's genes like, for example, one of the main one when it comes to diet. I mean, there's quite a lot, but let's say the common diet, like the keto diet, ketogenic diet, which is a high-fat diet, which is, you know, a really good diet to start with in terms of basics. But if you have these ApoE genes and you have an E4 variant of that gene, which is sort of high risks to fat absorption, let's say, it's not very healthy to have a full saturated fat butter in your coffee every morning or this sort of thing for you, because actually your body is designed not to break down this fat efficiently. So you will have a lot of fat that will be there to oxidize. And what it will do is to create inflammation and all the, you know, all the other problems that comes with it. So that's one example. But then, for example, veganism is also not for everybody. There's certain genes like the FADS1 and FTS2 family, and even MTRR, those genes, if you have certain variation of those genes, you just cannot be a healthy vegan. You will have this omega-3 and omega-6 ratio, which will not be right. And you need to make sure it is, otherwise, again, it will create inflammation. And there's a lot of vegans that start being vegan as a trend, and then are even worse because they get those inflammation reaction, joint pain, all this sort of thing, because they do have those gene variation. And it's all about your lifestyle as well. If you already have a pro-inflammatory lifestyle, you're stressed out, you're I don't know, you're not moving as much, you're quite sedentary, you don't need the right type of food, then, you know, it's already putting stress on your body, but it will create this inflammation. Yeah, and then you have all those different type of genes, like for food sensitivities. So, you know, one that a lot of people know about is caffeine, for example. Some people will process the CYP1, T-wave gene. So some people will process this, the caffeine, and will break it down quite easily. Others are what we call slow metabolizer, which basically will not be helping them in doing that. So another thing is salt, lactose, all of this can be understood through your genes. Islamic rich foods, we all have a different impact on all this.
I think that's really, really interesting. And the other thing that comes to my mind, of course, is that relationship between the diet and the gene, but also movement and the gene. Because when we think about ancestors and our ancestry lifestyle, we think about daily movement, daily routine, being as physical as possible. However, I've read that there are certain genes that would make you more prone or less prone to recovering quickly or to inflammation. So also, can you tell us a little bit more about this gene and your activity level or your...
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, genes covers everything. So your lifestyle, your diet, your environment will surely, it's a whole as well, right? It's all connected. But if you look at movements, obviously, if you have, I don't know, predisposition to certain genes like FTO, all those genes in relation to metabolism and energy expenditure, and if you're sedentary, you're more likely to put on fat. But you're just not designed to stay still. We're not designed to sit like this. It's just not how we are made anyway. So that's almost common sense. But it's even more true if you have already preconditions in certain genes, because you will switch those genes to express in the wrong way. And that's what we call epigenetic. You are the designer, in the sense that, again, your genes are not your fate. You're the one deciding the tag you put on them, and that's epigenetic. Epigenetic means around the gene, and you put the tag. So let's say if you are all I am predisposed to type 2 diabetes, for example, and you know, I can see those if I eat a lot of rich sort of carbs and I don't exercise, I will quickly feel my insulin, will have shakes, you know, and all these things. So I will have low glucose, you know, this sort of thing. And however, because I do intermittent fasting, because I, you know, eat quite low glycemic type of food, so not all the white processed stuff. And because I do exercise quite regularly, all of this train my insulin to be more resistant. So I have actually, more insulin flexibility, metabolic flexibility. So I'm not having any issue with that, even though I should be, but because I'm designed this way. But it's my lifestyle that actually dictates the results here. And that's what is very important to understand, is the lifestyle dictates the results.
And I love how empowering that message is really for our audience, and also to know that you can be absolutely proactive, and that you can learn about your genes and not let them dictate your fate, so to speak.
Yeah, and that's the whole idea when I got started with the idea of creating the platform like Omnus, is to really recenter the user or the person or us as the center of your health by giving you the data of what you should be doing in order of priority and how you should do that, basically. So, you know, giving you the priority, what is the things that you need to change, what are the changes that count, what trends actually don't work for you, and that's about you, making it more all personalized to you, and start being proactive towards your health and really learning almost like a hero's journey, you know.
Yeah.
This is, I think you mentioned you did read a bit of my book, so and I mentioned that in my book is this hero journey of going for your own health mastery, in the sense that you start exploring yourself, what are the important things that you need to focus on, and then learning many habits that make a big difference for yourself. And then you start really see the changes that count. And you really start to see your body reacting to all different levels.
That's wonderful. And really that's the essence, Thomas, of what you call personalized health assessment or personalized health prevention, right? Because it's not one size fits all. It's not, hey, let's all go on that keto diet or let's all be this and that. It's more about, okay, what's your genetic makeup and how would you best respond to optimize those genes, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you have the base of something, but then you need to adapt for yourself. You know, and the basics are always the same, and it's not just about diet. The basics are very simple. It's movement, is being, you know, a bit more in touch with your environment, you know, feeling a bit of this sunlight, even if it's not sunny, you know, still be outdoors and you know, go for long walks and this sort of thing. Being part of the community, all those things are very important for your genetic makeup and for your genetic health, because we are wired this way, right? And then it's about fine-tuning, because nowadays there's so much stresses in our environment, in our diet, because of processed food, because of the lifestyle we have, because of being in building with artificial lights. So we need to do the extra mile nowadays, unfortunately, because we don't have access to this, you know, ancestral lifestyle anymore that is perfect for our genes, because this is how we evolve. It's as simple as that. So for our genetic makeup right now, we live like, you know, the last 100 years. Evolution is a very, very long and slow process. But the last 100 years, we literally live in a big experiment, right? Everything's experiment. Wi-Fi, artificial light, you know. So there's no wonder why, you know, all the diseases that we're dying of now are in the rise, and it doesn't stop being in the rise, because we need to reestablish those connections, definitely.
And it's also reassuring. Well, I know that that was a bit of a worrying picture, but it's also reassuring to know for our audience that they can take their health into their own hands and adopt a very proactive approach.
Yes.
And in
Yeah.
that sense, because I really like this very self-responsible, and I really love this responsibility of your own health that you mentioned in your book, because I think we can all be a bit more responsible and empowered when it comes to the destiny of our health, and not just be responsive, because I think there is a lot to be said about getting into this sick and then getting a cure rather than preventing. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit, or tell our audience, what would be your top tips when it comes to that proactive approach to health?
Yeah, sure. So I think first, it's all about exploring who you are in the sense that having access to your own genetic data and understanding them, and this is what we do from Omnus, it's already a winning path, because you will stop following trends, you will stop the guesswork, you will stop being frustrated by things that don't work for you, and you will start in this journey of, okay, now I understand why this is happening. You sort of create this relationship with your own biology. And this is amazing, because at this level, then you're a lot more engaged already. Because as normal human being, when things are a bit too complicated nowadays, and especially when in this 100 miles an hour lifestyle we have, if it's too time consuming, you just, you move on. But that's why all the quick fix works so well. But they are quick fix, they are quick fix, and they don't work long term. It's nothing sustainable. So people get frustrated that it works a bit, but then it doesn't work for a long term. Your body will always, and this is the reason why, the 6 weeks package and all these things like always work. It sells very well, because your body will be shocked by the change, but this restriction long term, your brain is smart enough to say, okay, well, that's it now. I'm taking over, and it doesn't work very well this way long term. But if you have an approach which is a lot more sustainable, and by this starting point of like, okay, personalize things for yourself, that's already a winner. But the second thing I would do is to really then only track the things that are relevant, right? So instead of, it's more of a triage sort of thing now. It's like, okay, I know what are the top important things for me. Now I'm just going to focus on this and optimize those pathways. So for myself, for example, my detox pathways are not optimal. So detoxing, my body doesn't know how to do it properly. I've got those genes like GSDM1, and which basically are phase 1 and phase 2 of detoxification are not working very well. What it means is, whatever I breathe outside, being in London, my body will be quickly overwhelmed by it. So I need to make sure that I support my detoxification pathways in my diet through things like cruciferous vegetables that will do that. Okay, so broccoli, asparagus, they all have little enzyme that will switch on those processes to work better, yeah, and switch on those genes to work better. And then do also the extra bits. So now that my body has breaking down those toxins and ready to remove them, I do need to sweat them out. So I will do some training, sweating, movement, sauna, this sort of thing. And this is things that I have implemented in my lifestyle that now have become an habit. And actually, if I track this over time, so on the Omnus platform, we look at all those things like toxins, and you have your dashboard with all those things. And when I first started, obviously I was too busy walking my talk, too busy trying to make people healthier. It's typical. And the test that I've done, which is the envirotoxins, one of the tests we offer on our platform, my toxins were like way beyond normal, like dangerously abnormal. And from our hormone test, my detoxification pathways were super high as well. and
Okay.
my liver toxicity too high as well. And fairly enough, in my self-assessment, I was talking about brain fog, I was talking about joint pain, I was talking about all things related to high level of toxicity. And then I started walking my dog because I knew about those things, but seeing it again on the dashboard, I was like, oh wow, okay, so it's there, I need to do something about it. And funny enough, the lockdown happened and I got stuck. No, not stuck actually, because I was going there, but in Spain. And it was amazing because we were in this amazing environment in the countryside, you know, all of a sudden no cars, eating proper like food that was grown homemade without pesticide and all these things. And I retest when I came back after the lockdown, and everything was back to normal. And fair enough, no more joint pain, no more things, and my energy level got back to the, you know, to the roof. So it's good to see and to track over time and to see those trends. And because you know it's something that your body doesn't do very well, you know how to then, you know, and then you can go to all the things that to optimize really. And often all those things are linked. If your big problem is toxic for me, and then you're prone to inflammation, you know, you can, if you have too much toxins, you have too much inflammation. If you have too much inflammation, you know, it's then a cascade of issues. And the longest you let it happen, and this is what happens when we take things for granted and we think it's normal to have bad guts or this sort of thing, then goes into the statistic of, you know, 64% of people after eating have bloating or some sort of discomfort in their guts. That's not normal, you know, it's not. So a bit of bloating when just after you ate, okay, but not stays for a few hours. It's not normal. But yeah, so anyway, so all those things will help you to do things step by steps, and you know, then you can track, you can carry on maintaining and optimizing, rather than being in the dark, not knowing what to do, and just, you know, then crippling issues to then be part of the statistic. Because this is where your environment, living in a city like London, you look at the statistic are crazy. I don't want to be the you know, alarmist, but it's yeah, it's crazy. We're getting sicker.
We are.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are. But I think the beautiful message here is that it's not a fait accompli. You know, we can do something about it. And to tap into what you just mentioned as well about how you could take personalized, measurable actions. I wanted to say as well, I'm guessing that allows someone to then get access to personalized supplementation, because in the same way that there is not one size fits all diet, there is no really one size fits all supplementation. When I was listening to you talking about toxin and the whole detox process, I was thinking perhaps that would be the time when you would recommend to someone to supplement with NAC or something to support the detox system. Whereas we tend to have those blanket recommendations where, oh, everybody go take this, without looking at the genes and what the person actually would respond best to.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so if I go back to my example, for, and this is what the platform does very well, is to really go into the granularity of things. And I'm very excited about that, because it makes a big difference and people realize that there's, you know, real value into it. In the sense that for me, my genes is glutathione receptor, GSDM1. G is for glutathione. And glutathione is something that is super antioxidant, if you wish, that will bind to those chemicals and make them less reactive. So then your body can transport it. And this is what doesn't work for me. And fair enough, if I, in the test that I've done from the envirotoxins, those levels of glutathione were pretty much inexistent. So I didn't have, if you wish, the molecules to bind to those toxins to remove them, because already I'm predisposed genetically. So then my supplementation recommendation was glutathione. And once I've started this, obviously it helped my body to then tackle, and it's very targeted. And that's one example, but it can be many, many things. If you do all the tests, you take into consideration more than 1,000 biomarkers. So then things like, I don't know, let's say in your guts you have certain parasites, and you find that from your microbiome, let's say. And that's an example I was discussing today with someone, is, you have this parasite that feeds on iron, okay? Because they do have parasites, you can have this parasite, and and we find this out from your microbiome. But we also know that you're low in iron, but our platform, this is where the magic comes, is like we won't be recommending you iron, because actually, if you go to your GP now and you have low iron, they will give you iron tablets. But there's a lot more to look around. We're very complex. And it's this complexity we break down and try to make easy with the Omnus platform. Okay, so you have low iron and you have this parasite that feeds on iron. Maybe there's a correlation here, right? So actually, instead of feeding this parasite of iron by taking iron tablet, get rid of this parasite first with a very specific antibacterial type of supplements that will target this very specific parasite, because we can go granular with this. And this is what the platform will recommend you. And then once this is sorted and you retest and it's gone, and you will feel it anyway, you now can replenish your iron level. Because if you do it before, you might even actually make your gut health worse, because you will just make those parasites stronger, multiply, and could lead you to leaky guts long term, which can go to autoimmune diseases and all this sort of thing. So it's very important to personalize things for yourself, and then take everything into an ecosystem, into the equation, and really working things out by order of priority.
Yes, and surround yourself as well with people that are well informed on the subject, because your health journey, or for example your health coaching, is only going to be as good as the information that you or your coach or personal trainer or nutritionist know. So one would have to be as informed as they can be to give as personalized advice as the advice can be. So I love that interaction between not only the individual, but also the advisors, the health advisors that are going to be working with that person.
Yeah. I mean, it's very important, because, and this is maybe has been the arrogance sometimes of, the system, the health system that exists now. In the sense that, well, it's a very different system anyway, but what I mean is, like, if you break down, let's say I go outside, get hit by a car, there will be amazing doctor. No, but I mean, it's like, there will be amazing doctor to come and save my life.
I've just knocked on wood. All good.
Yeah, so there will be amazing doctors to come and save my life, and that's amazing. But that's an acute care system. But when it comes to preventing diseases before you break down, that's a whole different system you need. And for that, you need to take in consideration everything, your body as a whole. And if you look at something like just what's happening in a cell and the map of all those molecular reaction in one cell, it's huge and it's unbelievable. It's like we are super complex, right? So we cannot pretend that we know everything, right? But we can already understand that things are connected, and that's the first step. And having done this work on the back end with amazing people much cleverer than me, like functional doctors and my co-founder, for example, Ben, and astrophysicist sort of brain, connecting the dots and having all those formula and making it all simple is very important. And then you can add layer of complexity with the things as science progresses, because there's so many things that needs to be uncovered. All the things we know already, there's a lot, and then there's the things you don't know, and then the things you don't know, right?
Yes,
so
right.
That's a lot of things, but we're getting there, and it's very interesting that now having access to all those science access to all those information, to being able to, through technology, to make it accessible for everyone and in an organized manner. So you decentralize everything, you organize things, and then you make it more user-friendly in the sense that everybody can understand what it means. You don't have to have a PhD to understand those results. It's been translated to you, and we tell you what to do about it. I think it's a very good start.
Absolutely, and that's really where the focus is here, is on preventable disease.
Yes.
So as I said, we're not trying to replace the surgeon that's going to help someone who just had an accident. It's about taking care of your health to prevent rather than cure. And when we look at the statistic, the preventable disease are just really the problem of the century.
Yeah, it is.
It's everywhere: cardiovascular, type 2 diabetes, and it's all lifestyle related, really.
Yeah. So the four big killers, which are type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, dementia, and so it was the fourth, cancer. Sorry. Those are all preventable by changing your diet, lifestyle, and environment. Now, there's a bit of less certitude when it comes to cancer because it can be mutation.
Right.
Again, those mutations are, there's many things are due to this, different miscommunication almost with your lifestyle and your environment. But so much, like type 2 diabetes, which costs more than 50 billion a year to the NHS, is totally preventable. And it's all about being educated about it. So if you know you're going through your genetic, you're going predisposed to it, just learn about it. Learn about, that you should have low glycemic index. Learn how to, be more, less sedentary, and try to increase your metabolic flexibility by doing things like intermittent fasting and all this. And this will, again, ancestral thing, but before it wasn't a choice to do intermittent fasting. It was just,
Exactly.
the meal, you have to go and get it. Now you just go to the supermarket. But yeah, all those things makes a big difference.
No, I think it's really, I love the point that you're making about intermittent fasting and ancestry, because we now think of it as, oh, this thing that we need to do, not eating, because there is so much emotional eating going on and we're just overfed and undernourished constantly. Yeah. And I think the simple idea of intermittent fasting can cause a great amount of anxiety to most people. I see it in my coaching. There is a massive pushback when it comes to intermittent fasting, which I understand because we live in a society where we're being literally drop fed 3 times a day and overly eating the whole time. But if we go back at our ancestors, like you said, they had to hunt to go and get that food, and we know that when we were in a fasted state, our cognitive function was improved, our muscle were functioning better, and it was a question of survival. But that's not something that we think about often enough, I think.
And then even this with your genes, you can adapt, because there's certain genes that we know about will make you more hungry during fasting. There's certain genes that, will tell you about like what is the optimal time for you to fast. So things like the clock genes has to do with your circadian rhythm, all this sort of thing.
Right.
And then also, there's real conditions, obviously, that if you have those, you shouldn't fast, right? So if you have thyroid issues or things like that, maybe fasting is not good. So it's definitely, but yeah, for a lot of issue, intermittent fasting is amazing. Immunity, a lot.
So Thomas, for someone that's just heard about Omnus for the first time tonight, that is just thrilled and curious about everything they're hearing now, what is the journey you want to take them on? What do they need to do? Where is the best place to start? Because it can feel a bit overwhelming, just putting myself in the shoes of someone that's never heard about how you can get your genes tested, about gene optimization. Where would you want to take them? What's the best journey to begin with?
We made it all very simple through a platform, which is good looking. We've been told many times, so it's good. And you just have you just have to basically put it like where to start. You go on omnus.me, and you just start with a self-assessment.
Mm-hmm.
And this self-assessment is a series of questions, but they're really specific questions that will already give you a wellness score. But based on this wellness score as well, you will have personalized recommendations already based on the answers. And we will explain you why we give you that bits of advice because of the answers you've given. And what it does as well is tells you which test is next best for you to do. So if you never have done a genetic test, it's always good to have, and it's a very good starting point. But if the platform recommends you, for example, a hormone test, maybe because through your self-assessment questionnaire, we've noticed that you mentioned migraines, you mentioned mood swing, you mentioned not sleeping properly, loss of appetite. Those are more hormone-related issues. So maybe that's the first thing you should be looking at, because we know already there's something going on there.
Mm-hmm.
So and once you have done that, then it's amazing because you go more and more granular. Which once you have done this test, you've got your result. Then what are the issues? Is it estrogen dominance? Is it cortisol patterns being completely out of balance? Is it detoxification pathways not being challenged? And then based on this, we give you the things to do, things to avoid, things to take sometimes, supplements. But supplements, once again, should be the last resort. And if we recommend supplements, it's only because, it's sort of like a boost, a help. But we always explain that the first thing to do is lifestyle and diet. And then if it's too clinical or if it's clinical, we tend to tell you to see a functional doctor, and we will help you through the process. And those functional doctors are accessible through the platform directly. So, and this is what is very powerful, because then you can uncover things that you have no idea of at a time where, you're too busy, you're busy executives, and we have many of that when we were doing those pilots with big corporates. People have like jam-packed schedule for the next 3 months, traveling around the world, and no time whatsoever or not even thinking about seeing anybody about their little wear and tear. And actually, things that needs to be addressed now. Stop now and have a look at that, because this long term will be a big problem that you had to stop. Right? Your body will stop.
Absolutely.
So
it's always what I think about, when we say health is our greatest wealth. I've seen so many people accumulate that much money and spending their life working away, but then they spend the rest of their life spending the money that they made trying to fix the health problems.
I think it's also the mindset, but it is starting to shift, and things like what happened with COVID-19, for example, replace people in position where, well, actually my health is very important and we are very fragile and vulnerable. And actually, if my health doesn't work, the whole society doesn't work. Because if you look at things happening now, a pandemic stops everything, right? So at a micro level, it's the same for us. If your health, stop functioning, if you're not functioning properly, well, everything that you're trying to enterprise, all the things you do will stop as well. So it's really the main thing you have.
Absolutely. And I think that's the positive message tonight for our audience, is really to know that you can optimize your health. It's within your power, and it's not a sci-fi faraway fiction anymore. It's here, it's now. And actually, I hadn't mentioned it to our audience, but Thomas and I met at the biohacking conference in Finland, which is the health human optimization conference. And in that sense, it's really, really important, I think, to convey the positive message, especially currently with what's going on. There is so much fear, there is so much anxiety, there is so much underlying concern, and there is a big shift towards negative mindset and sort of victim mentality. And I think it's time that we all become the heroes of our own health journey.
Yes.
And I really love the powerful message that you mentioned, the hero's journey. Well, it begins today. It begins with you becoming aware of your health and how you can empower yourself to optimize.
Yes. And we have the tool for it now, and Omnus is an amazing tool for it. And yes, definitely you can. You are the designer of your health. It's it's as simple as that. And we actually live in this very exciting time where we have access to all those data, and we can be a lot more proactive than 10 years ago. And it keeps improving and very fast as well. And talking about things like COVID genes, for example, I mean, COVID, we do have the genes on our platform. There's 56 genes that tells you your predisposition to certain or the disease outcome. And then
Right.
you connect the dot to that to your microbiome, for example, will tell you if you're actually, the first line of defense of your immunity is ready for it or not. So if you are high risks, and on top of that you have already certain conditions and you have this first line of defense totally down, well, do something about it, because if it happens to you, you will feel it. But if you actually know about it, maybe you could do something, and it doesn't take too long sometimes to correct things. It's a process, yes, it's not a quick fix, but once you've done it and you know how to do it, you can keep it as a sustained way. And if a new waves of pandemic like this comes, you're ready.
Become aware and take actions.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Thomas, I can't tell you how grateful I am for your time. I'm sure everybody has done so much. I really want to encourage everyone to go and get your genes test kit. It's super easy. You do not have to have a degree in biochemistry to do it, nor to understand the results. So I'll make sure that I pop the link of Omnus website to order the test. And really, thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Honored to talk to you, and I can't wait to have you back online. Maybe we talk about another test next time.
Yeah, let's do that. No problem.
That'll be wonderful.
Speak to you soon.
Thanks so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.